You're listening to Moving Business Forward Faster, a podcast by the United Nations Global Compact.
This is an infinitely solvable problem.
Convene businesses around a large, ambitious goal.
It's the right thing for our business. It's the right thing for society.
Moving business forward faster.
Forward Faster will help us all together as a community to drive progress on the Sustainable Development Goals. It's time to move forward faster.
Welcome to the podcast Moving Business Forward Faster, your insight into how businesses are shaping a sustainable future. The Forward Faster initiative is all about sparking a movement where businesses don't just pledge to be better, but also put their progress on display for the world to see. This podcast seeks to highlight this initiative and guides us towards the 2030 agenda. With just 7 years left to meet our goals, we invite insightful guests to discuss their company's strategies in 5 areas of action. In today's episode, we are tackling the theme of water resilience. Thank you, Cheryl Hicks and Vedika Bandarkar, for joining us today. Cheryl, will you tell us what you work with?
Sure. So I'm a senior advisor at the CEO Water Mandate. And the CEO Water Mandate is a partnership between the United Nations Global Compact and the Pacific Institute. We work with companies on their water stewardship commitments.
Thank you. Vedika, please share with us what you do.
Thank you. So I'm the CEO of water.org. We are a not-for-profit, which is exclusively focused on enabling access to safe water and safely managed sanitation for people living in poverty all across the world. I am also representing a group organization called Water Equity, which is an asset manager, again, exclusively focused on water and sanitation.
Thank you. And it's also interesting to learn more about your projects and what you are doing. And the first question is for you, Cheryl. Cheryl, with your experience as the CEO of Water Mandate, can you discuss any technological innovations or breakthroughs that have been significant in enhancing water resilience?
Yes, happy to. So we at the CEO Water Mandate actually think about innovation more broadly than just technological innovation, which is of course a part of it. But around our theme of water resilience, the CEO Water Mandate launched a new initiative in 2020 called the Water Resilience Coalition. And this coalition came together as a leadership group of companies that really wanted to drive a more ambitious set of commitments on behalf of business for water resilience, thinking about the increasing risks that companies have around water in the face of climate change. And what's innovative about this new initiative is that companies, for the first time on water, are coming together to work together at the basin level, at the source. So companies have been pressing forward leadership initiatives on water stewardship for many years within their own operations, but the Water Resilience Coalition, for the first time, brings them together at the basin level and what they've committed to is net positive water impact, working together at the basin level to protect the source that all businesses and, of course, society relies on.
This is very impressive how partnerships can speed up the progress. And I will ask you a next question about how to do it faster together. But my second question is to you, Vedika. Mm-hmm. And how does water.org leverage technology and innovation in its mission to provide access to water and sanitation? And how do these advancements contribute to water resilience?
Sure. So I'm also going to give you a bit of a broader answer. So when we think of innovation, and it's going to probably surprise you a bit, but when we think of innovation, we actually think of market-based solutions. And that's typically very unconventional for a not-for-profit to talk about market-based solutions. But very early in our history, we're about a 32-year-old organization, and very early in our history, we realized that just philanthropy alone is not going to make the world or make us achieve our vision of enabling access to water and sanitation. So we started looking at people living in poverty, and we realized that they're paying a lot. They're paying a lot either in terms of real costs, dollars per bottle of water, and or they're paying a lot in terms of coping costs when you think of the hours of work lost or girls dropping out of school just because they don't have access to water at home, and the girls are helping their moms collect water. So we said, what if we can convert or what if we can direct some of these costs towards finding a market-based solution? And so what we started is we started partnering with financial institutions across the world. And these financial institutions, their clients are the people who we want to serve. And we said, can we convince you financial institutions to start making small loans? So if you wanted a water tap at home, can you get a loan of a couple of $100? Or if Cheryl wants to build a toilet, can she get a loan of $500? And initially it was hard, but we kept at it, and this is an innovation we are really proud of. And today, fast forward about 15, 16 years later, we've reached 60 million people all across the world, and our financial partners, these local financial institutions, have cumulatively lent $4.7 billion worth of water and sanitation loans. So that's one innovation which we are really proud of. The other innovation is water equity. I mentioned it right up front. So this is the world's first impact investor, first asset manager, which is only focused on water and sanitation. So water equity today has 4 funds. We have committed capital of $350 million, and we have been providing capital to the financial institutions so that they can scale up their lending for water and sanitation. So, innovation is important, not just in the conventional sense of technological innovation. And the good news is in water and sanitation, the technology is pretty clear, but also innovations needed in terms of how we use capital so that we can really get closer to the 2030 mission.
Thank you for sharing your experience with us, and I absolutely agree that innovations are important and supporting communities as well. And Cheryl, you mentioned partnerships, and my next question is, how critical are collaborations and partnerships to the CEO Water Mandate's efforts in promoting water stewardship, and what role do they play in advancing water resilience?
So it's a really important question because actually at the heart of the Water Resilience Coalition, the leadership initiative on water resilience that I mentioned earlier, is collaboration. So the companies are committing to collective action, so committing to collaborating together in basins of joint interest. And at this year's UN Water Conference in March, the Water Resilience Coalition and its partners announced a list of 100 of the world's most water-stressed basins, which are the basins that, of course, are the most vulnerable in terms of water stress, but also the same basins that Water Resilience Coalition companies are reliant on for their own business continuity and growth. And so therefore have a strategic interest in making investments to protect those water sources at the basin level. And they're committing to do that collaboratively where they have operations in common in different basins. And I'd like to touch on 4 different strategies of how they do that. And so how are they collaborating? They're collaborating by becoming basin champions. So where different companies have interest in a basin, they are naming them and declaring them themselves a champion of those basins, putting them together in a collaboration with other companies. And then they are building strategies around where business particularly can invest and work towards positive impact together in that basin. The second strategy is around innovation, and of course, and you mentioned technological innovation, and this is where this comes in to the strategy. So companies, of course, bring a lot more than money to these challenges. They bring a lot of expertise, their own innovations, and also sort of industrial symbiosis of how to work together across value chains. And this strategy is very much a part of the way they're collaborating. And there's two examples of that, which touch on the other two strategies. The third strategy is collective investments, collaborative investments, which is where we're partnering with Water Equity. Really happy to be partnering with Vedika and her team. And this is one of our biggest achievements of this year, the first collective investment that companies have made in a market-based mechanism, the Water Equity Water Access Fund. Companies contributed to a $150 million fund of water equities, which is one of the biggest collective investments made in water to date. And that's just the beginning. And we have an investment strategy to scale up these investments into the future. So super exciting this way companies are innovating around collaborating together. And the third area is around impact measurement. Accountability in today's climate is so important, and the way that the Water Resilience Coalition is tackling impact measurement is through digitization and digitizing that impact measurement. So it's true that today, astonishingly, we don't have a lot of information that's common on these basins, and so we have a partnership with the European Space Agency to work together with their partners to digitize these 100 basins so that we have a jointly, and it'll be open source, but jointly a view on really the causes of water stress and the current situation of water availability, water quality, and access around those basins. But furthermore, that digitization will allow us to, in real time, measure the impact that the companies' collaborative investments in these basins are having. And so these are 4 ways that companies are collaborating together under this umbrella of collective action in the Water Resilience Coalition.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing with us. Vedika, you mentioned people, and my next question is, what role does your organization play in supporting local communities to manage water resources effectively, and how does this impact your corporate reputation?
That's a great question. So anything that we do is always keeping the communities at the center of it, right? So, I talked about the strategy that we've been using where we're finding solutions for the households. And our belief has been that the households, the people living at the base of the economic pyramid, they do know what solutions they want. They're very clear about the solutions they want. But what they lack is upfront capital. And they lack access to affordable capital. And that's exactly what we've been trying to solve. And that's where our partnership with financial institutions and our partnership with companies in the WRC comes through, right? Cheryl talked about so many of our the WRC companies who have invested in Water Equity's Financial Institution Fund, which has been a phenomenal partnership and which we look forward to growing. But we also realize that keeping communities at the center, it's important to also come at this problem from the top down. So what do I mean by that? I mean, solve the problem of inadequate infrastructure. So very often, the water companies are there, the water utilities or the sewage networks are there, but they're not serving the people living in the informal settlements. So you have cases where the pipes are running underneath their homes, but their homes are not connected. Or you have the situation where the networks are just so old and so badly run that the water leakage, there's a fancy word for it, it's called non-revenue water, can be as high as 30, 40, 50%, right? So again, keeping the communities at the heart of this and saying, okay, what are the problems the community is facing and how can we solve for it? That's how we've now decided to come at it both bottom up, which we've been doing, but also top down, and saying, okay, for the infrastructure, what are the problems, again, that the infrastructure companies face, whether it's the utilities, whether it's the wastewater management companies, whether it's the industrial waste companies, what's the problem they're facing? And we realize very often the problem they're facing is the lack of financing. And again, given that we know finance a little bit, we said, let's come at it from the same lens and invest in making these utilities or these wastewater management companies or these growth companies bankable so that they can attract capital. And again, we're really excited. We are in the process of launching our first ever infrastructure fund. This is going to be a $200 million fund. And we're very excited that we already have commitments, soft circle commitments for the first 100 million, predominantly from the companies in the WRC. And we are hoping to announce first closure by the end of Q1 in 2024 and finally close the fund sometime in 2024, which will be focused exclusively on investing in infrastructure so that, again, the communities which are either underserved or unserved are able to get access to running water and proper sewage.
Cheryl, you've mentioned strategies, and my next question is, can you discuss how your water resilience strategies align with the broader sustainable development goals, particularly in ensuring access to clean water and sanitation?
Absolutely. And this, I think, is a nice segue from what Vedika was just talking about in our partnership in the water equity funds. So the Water Resilience Coalition's goals and ambitions are, there's three main ambitions. The first one is to have the companies who are withdrawing the most water from basins to work together in 100 of the most water-stressed basins. The second one is how many people can we improve livelihoods for in doing that, and that's 6 billion people who are living amongst these 100 water-stressed basins. And of that, around water and sanitation, there are 300 million people that are still without safely managed water and climate resilient water and sanitation. And that's where we're working together with water.org and Water Equity to address that issue through the investments that companies can make. And I want to say something about the investments, because I think this is a really important point for companies, that are looking to have impact, that may have restricted funds through their foundations and philanthropy budgets. What we've found in this investment strategy is that by looking to the capital markets, by looking to investments that companies can make in water through the capital markets, presents a new opportunity for companies to invest in water. And again, this is a strategic investment, a material investment for their own operations, as well as the source, of course, because it's returnable capital. And that is something that's not really been available to companies before in the water space. And again, huge, kudos to Water Equity, as Vedika mentioned, one of the first funds for water and sanitation, a capital market mechanism that companies can invest in and have their capital returned, which allows them then to invest differently than they can through their foundations, enabling us to increase private sector investments in water. So in terms of, addressing the Sustainable Development Goals, and particularly SDG 6 around universal access to safe water and sanitation, this is a way that the private sector can invest more through the capital markets and through the types of mechanisms, for example, Water Equity and others. Part of our strategy, in addition to WASH, Water Sanitation and Hygiene, which our core partner is water.org and Water Equity, we're also looking at other water resilience investments through nature-based solutions, for example, as well as different infrastructure investments related to water resilience. So this investment strategy is just getting started, and we're really interested in how we can follow the lead of climate finance, which has managed to increase private sector investments for climate solutions through capital market mechanisms, and how we can do that for water resilience as well.
Thank you, Cheryl. Yes, these sustainable development goals are very much connected, and it's really great to know how you attract more partners and more investments. Talking about 2030 agenda, Vedika, could you describe the measures your company has taken to improve operational efficiency in water usage, especially considering the anticipated water demand by 2030?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you. So, I want to answer it in two parts, right? Cheryl talked about financing, and if you just take a step back and say, if the world wants to achieve the 2030 Sustainable Development Goals, which it has set itself for, and especially SDG 6, what's the extent of financing needed, right? And the amount of financing which is needed is estimated to be $1.7 trillion. The amount which is currently being invested is about a third of that. So there's a huge financing gap, which does mean that we need all actors participating. It's not enough to say this is the government's job or it's the infrastructure company's job. We need everybody in. So we need the governments, we need the private sector, the corporates, we need the financial institutions, we need the philanthropists, the multilateral development banks, everybody in. And the second point is what Cheryl mentioned, we need all forms of capital, right? So we need loans, we need equity, we need philanthropy, we need guarantees, we need all forms of capital. I think this 1.7 trillion is really before estimating, adding the amount which is or the backsliding which is happening because of climate change. Because climate change is, or the climate crisis is causing all of these numbers to become even worse. The crisis, the climate change impact is first felt and felt the worst by the people living in poverty. Right, and we're seeing it in the countries where we operate, where the rain patterns have shifted, where there's either too much rain or too little rain, both of which have an impact on water quality as well as water availability. I talked to you about leaking pipes, right? And it's not a very interesting topic. People don't usually talk about it, but if you think about it, 35% of water going through pipes everywhere in the world, every day, 35% is wasted. And that number can be as high as 50, 60%, depending on the country where you work in. And so that's something which we're very excited about as to if we can find ways of reducing that wastage, reducing that non-revenue water, it has multiple benefits. So I'll give you an example of a project we're working in Indonesia currently. So we are working in Indonesia with a community-based utility, which has water leakage as high as 60%. And our objective there is if we can bring down the leakage by, say, 20 percentage points or more, maybe make it from 60, make it down to 30, what happens? We have the existing homes which are customers get better quality of water. They get better service. The utility can connect many new households. The utility is wasting less water, so there's less water it has to pump through, so there's less greenhouse gas emission. And fourth, the utility is suddenly in much better financial position, so it's more bankable, so it can get commercial financing. So that's one thing which we are very, very excited about, stop these pipes from leaking.
So everyone should be involved, and we need to find more solutions. Thank you, Cheryl and Vedika. This was an enlightening conversation with you. My name is Alina Konovalchenko, Operational Director at UN Global Compact Network Ukraine.
Thank you for listening to Moving Business Forward Faster, a podcast by the United Nations Global Compact. To learn more about Forward Faster, visit forwardfaster.unglobalcompact.org.